So I'm going to talk about what I sent around to you earlier this morning. And for sure, look at the links here. You'll see what a discussion guide is. I asked the brand marketing team, and they're working on a different dating app brand. I asked them to prepare a discussion guide. They did a good job. Could this be better? Yeah, it could be better. It could be better in a lot of ways. There wasn't enough probing here, but I sent this around to you. What they were trying to do is they were trying to get an idea of what popular apps generate in people's minds, and they mixed in. I think they mixed in some other dating, if you will, dating app kinds of things over here. What they're trying to do is get a sense of what do people think about when they think of a dating app. So that's part of your strategy. You're all working on, I think it's Bumble in this case, but regardless of what you're working on, you need to understand what people think about dating apps in general, and specifically Bumble, right? Because you're working on Bumble in this case. All the things that go into a creative strategy brief, advantages, disadvantages, problems, the issues, perceptions that people have, the target audience has. And who is the target audience, by the way, for Bumble? I don't know. This is what you're going to convince me that you know who the target audience is. I know you've been told 18 to 24-year-olds, but you should not just come in with, we're going after 18 to 24-year-olds. You should tell me which 18 to 24-year-olds are you trying to reach? Which 18 to 24-year-olds are you trying to capture their attention? What kinds of 18 to 24-year-olds? How are 16 and 17-year-olds different from the 18 and 24-year-olds you're trying to reach? Within the world of 18 to 24-year-olds, are there some people that are higher priority? Are there some people that are lower priority? And why is that? Why is that? So I share this with you just by way of example. We'll get to that in a moment. Let me walk you through these PowerPoint slides now that deal with qualitative research. This was from chapter 4. So chapter 4 has a figure, and you can see it. You do in-depth interviews, projective techniques, association tests, which is what the word association test, which is what the brand marketing team was seeking to do with the discussion guide I just shared with you a moment ago, focus groups. If this was not a sensitive topic, I would say 2 focus groups. If this was not a sensitive topic, you can do what we call mini groups. Mini groups are like 2 or 3 or 4 people together. But this is a sensitive topic. People may not want to talk about in any kind of depth how they feel about dating with other people. So usually these kind of interviews are interviews that are best done one-on-one as opposed to bringing people together talking about it. Let me just ask this question. I'm curious to see who would like to volunteer an answer. What do you think is better, doing 100 interviews, each one 10 minutes in length, or doing 10 interviews, each one 30 minutes in length? Which one on this topic in particular will get you the most insight? Anybody have a thought?
Wasn't that there was something covered in the book? I think it was like the psychoanalytic theory of motivation research that kind of like stated that what was it? It was that like there was a lot of like skepticism around like I guess like smaller groups, but at the same time like smaller groups like I guess you could like delve deeper into I guess like the human mind, but at the same time you're almost like in a sense like stereotyping like one group I guess like based off of like a smaller like part of its opinion.
Well, D'Antonio, what do you think is better? Doing 100 interviews, each one?
I think 100.
At this stage, the answer is if it's 100 interviews, each one 10 minutes in length, or 10 interviews, 100 minutes in length. Believe it or not, at this stage, 10 interviews, 100 minutes in length. Now, I'm not saying spend 100 minutes with somebody, but the more time you spend with somebody, particularly on a subject that is as rich and sensitive as this topic, the better off you're going to be. The more likely during the, let's say you spend 30 minutes with them, by the 23rd minute, they're starting to open up. You do 100 interviews, 10 minutes in length, by the 8th or 9th or 10th minute, they still haven't opened up to you. But so the general professional approach to this is fewer interviews, but as long as you can keep somebody on the phone. These sorts of interviews have to be done on the phone or in person or through Zoom, not through, let me send a questionnaire and they'll fill it out, because they will not provide you the rich texture and nuance of a self-administered questionnaire when they reply back. It'll be very abbreviated, very truncated, and it won't be rich with lots of information. Right now, you're looking for an insight, which means you want to reflect on the target audience and what's really motivating them. And that comes with some of these projective techniques. There's nothing that anyone would say that this one technique is better than another. At an earlier lecture, I think I told you some of the techniques that professionals use. They'll say to consumers, if Tinder or Plenty of Fish or Bumble or Grindr were a person, and you were to introduce him or her at a party, how would you introduce him or her? What would you say about them? That's called the neighborhood cocktail party introduction mode. Because if Bumble or Plenty of Fish or Tinder were a person and they just passed away, and you were to write their obituary, what would it say in the obituary? If they were a car, what kind of car would they be? If they were a music group, what kind of music group would they be? But in every case, the more important question is the follow-up question. Why do you say that? Why would you describe them that way? Why do you believe that that's what they are? Why do you believe that's the case? Are there any other reasons that you can think of that makes you feel that that's who or what Tinder is, or Bumble, or Plenty of Fish, or Grindr, or any of the other Match, or any of the other brands that you're researching? Ultimately, you need to understand, in this particular case, how let's say Bumble is different and better than all the other brands. Every brand generally has some strength that makes it different and better than all the other brands. If it doesn't, you have to go out and figure out and find a strength, create a strength that you think is going to be relevant to the target audience. So we'll talk about this on Monday when you all share with me the research you've been doing. So qualitative research is very, very important to being successful. It's part of the grading criteria for your first graded project, but it's not without its disadvantages. Chapter 18, which we're talking a little bit about today, says weaknesses associated with focus group research or qualitative research. This shows all the kinds of weaknesses. There are several, make this a little larger, there are several weaknesses associated with qualitative research. So how do you overcome these weaknesses? Well, let me explain how you overcome. This first graded project, your creative strategy brief, I'm going to judge you on how convincing you are, how much you've convinced me that the things you lay out, the creative strategy elements, are believable to me, that I think, okay, I see what he's saying, what she's saying, what they're saying. I accept it because they did all of this research. So I'll be looking at that. Now, qualitative research is one way to do it, but it's not the only way for all these, because of all these weaknesses you see here. So other things you need to do is you're going to need to do quantitative research. And this gets back to what Antonio was saying. You're going to want, once you think you have an idea, you're going to want to interview maybe 30 to 40 people. I'm not asking you to interview hundreds, but you may want to get some confirmation. Once you learn something in qualitative, you're going to want to get some quantitative confirmation. Maybe you can get it from Simmons or MRI, maybe. Maybe you'll have to do your own survey. Again, I'll be evaluating the teams and ranking them based upon how much research they did and how good the research was. So to me, there's no such thing as too much research. What there is presenting too much research that doesn't go anywhere. So be very selective about what you're going to present. Most research that professionals do often does not see the light of day. It's not presented because you learn a lot, but some of what you learn doesn't quite take you anywhere. And you're not going to waste anybody's time, right? Presenting information that doesn't take you anywhere. So what other kind of research can you do? You can read journal articles. I think you're supposed to use some journal articles. There are lots of journal articles about dating and how young people go about dating in general and how they go about using dating apps. There's all kinds of articles. I mean, there's thousands of articles. So you can use articles that discuss the dating scene in general and particularly among people 18 to 24 and how they use dating apps. So there's that possibility available to you. You can quote an expert if there's an expert, not some unknown person, but someone who's really a known expert on the topic who makes a reference or makes a statement about the brand you're interested in or about the target audience that you're interested in. And if that statement supports what you are doing and what you're looking to recommend, use it. You can have a quote from someone. The slide can just be, the quote. But you need to identify who that person is, what their role is, what their expertise is, and where you found the quote, right? Can you quote the people that you interviewed without revealing their names? You could say a 22-year-old woman or a 22-year-old college student, a 20-year-old cashier, male. You can quote them, excerpts that they provide you that you think support where you're going with your recommendation. That's fair game. And if you look at brand marketing team presentations, they do some of that. They will quote people to support a point they're trying to make. So that's how the research plays out. I've been asked often by people, well, how does quantitative research work later on? Well, later on, if you really believe that you have the right message, you're going to quantitatively test it. And chapter 18 provides you all kinds of examples how to quantitatively test your message. You're not ready for that yet, I don't think. We'll talk about that. Any questions about the research process and how important it is? And again, it's very prominent in the grading criteria. So the grading criteria for the first graded team project has been up now for a number of weeks. And I'm sure you all looked at it, but I wanted to make sure you understand what an important role it's going to play in grading this project. Any questions about that? All right.